My friends, Trump has finally broken the silence about what happened last night in the Strait of Hormuz, and he posted everything on social media, a detailed presidential statement. Trump confirms that 3 American Navy destroyers were attacked by the Iranians and confirms that none of the 3 were damaged. He confirms that the Iranians lost small boats and suffered severe damage. He even calls the Iranian regime lunatics. Here on the channel, I put the pieces together as I always have, so stay with me until the end. Live from Israel, right where everything is happening. Let's get started. But before I read Trump's statement, let me remind you briefly what happened yesterday. The United States attacked Iranian military facilities in Bandar Abbas, on Kersh Island, and military infrastructure in western Tehran. In response to the 15 missiles that Iran launched at the port of Fujairah in the United Arab Emirates 3 days ago, Iran retaliated with missiles and drones and by sending small boats against 3 American destroyers. The Iranian attacks failed completely. CENTCOM said in an official statement that no American ship was hit. This is the summary of what happened yesterday in our last live broadcast. But there are some details here that need to be added. Detail 1, the Iranian oil tanker that started it all. Yesterday morning, the center confirmed. Google, an American F-18 plane taking off from the aircraft carrier Abraham Lincoln, neutralized the Iranian oil tanker. The oil tanker was called MT Asna, and it was trying to break through the American naval blockade. It was leaving the region in the Gulf of Oman, heading to an Iranian port. The F-18 fired several bursts at the tanker's rudder, and the ship lost steering. And it was this neutralization of the Iranian tanker that the Iranian regime used as a pretext to try to attack the American destroyers. The regime claimed that the Americans violated the ceasefire first, but remember, this was a blockade. They already knew they couldn't go through there. Detail number 2, the scale of the American retaliation operation. CENTCOM didn't just hit Bandar Abbas and Kersh. CENTCOM's official statement says the following. The Americans targeted Iranian military facilities responsible for attacks against American forces, including missile and drone launch sites, command and control locations, and intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance centers. End quote. And what does that mean militarily? The Americans destroyed the Iranian infrastructure that was behind the attempts against the destroyers, command, intelligence, and surveillance sites. These are the nerves of the Iranian military system in the south of the country. And that's probably why the Iranian air defense systems were activated in the west of Tehran, which you can see here at the beginning of these images. The American operation was bigger than it seemed in the first hours, and now, right after that, came Trump's statement posted on his social network. I'm going to read here exactly what he wrote. Open quotes. 3 world-class American destroyers have just successfully transited out of the Strait of Hormuz under fire. No damage was caused to the 3 destroyers, but great damage was inflicted on the Iranian attackers. He continues the post by saying the following. They were completely destroyed along with several small boats, those little speedboats which are being used to replace their totally decapitated Iranian navy. Those boats went to the bottom of the sea quickly and efficiently. Now pay attention to something very important. The totally decapitated Iranian navy, according to Trump. Operation Epic Fury destroyed the conventional navy. For those who didn't understand those big boats, the conventional Iranian navy was destroyed in February and March. The Iranian regime no longer has warships, those big ones. I'll say it again, the big ones. But it does have small boats that go at high speed. But they have little firepower. There's a lot of propaganda and little firepower. That's the truth. And it was those small boats that tried to attack the American destroyers yesterday, along with cruise missiles. They went to the bottom of the sea, in Trump's words. Continuing here with the post, quote, missiles were fired at our destroyers and were easily shot down. In the same way, drones came and were incinerated in the air. They fell so beautifully into the ocean, much like a butterfly falling into its grave. End quote. Just look at Trump's language, like a butterfly falling into its own grave. The American president is in full provocation mode against the Iranian regime. And then came the harshest part of the statement, quote, a normal country would have let those destroyers pass, but Iran is not a normal country. They are led by lunatics, And if they had the chance to use an atomic weapon, they would do it without a doubt. End quote. That's the American president saying what he thinks of the Iranian regime, lunatics, and he adds, but they will never have that opportunity. And just like we hit them again today, we're going to hit them much harder and much more violently in the future if they don't make their deal quickly. End quote. That's the crucial point, and he's giving a direct ultimatum. Either the Iranian regime makes the deal quickly or he comes back with full force. And to close Trump's post, open quote, our three destroyers with their wonderful crews will now return to our naval blockade, which is truly a wall of steel, end quote. He confirms that the three destroyers are continuing the operation in the region and are returning to the American naval blockade, which he calls a wall of steel. And also, the American president also declared in a separate interview to the press, he said the following, open quote, the ceasefire continues. It's in effect the attacks were just love taps, close quote. Love taps. Those were exactly his words to describe last night's American operation. It's calculated language, it's not all-out war, it's not the end of the ceasefire, it's a reminder to the Iranian regime of who holds the power. But the president went much further after that. In an interview near the Lincoln Memorial there in Washington, he was more aggressive. When he was asked about the ceasefire, he said the following, quote, you won't need to know if there's no more ceasefire. You'll just have to look at the big flash coming from Iran, end quote. Big flash coming from Iran. Those were exactly the president's words. That's a message to the Iranian regime. If they truly break the ceasefire, there will be bombing on a scale that will light up the Iranian sky. And he added the following, they messed with us today. Messed with us were Trump's words. Direct language, no beating around the bush. He's saying that the Iranian attempt was amateur stuff compared to American power. And it doesn't stop there. The whole U.S. national security team confirmed the position. Peter Hegseth, the Secretary of War, declared the following today, the ceasefire is certainly being maintained. And General Dan Caney, the chief of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, was more technical. He said this, the incidents all remain below the threshold for resuming major combat operations. Below the threshold, which means in precise military language that the Americans consider the Iranian attempt as a minor provocation. It's not war, it's not a resumption of the conflict. And now the important part, Axios revealed yesterday and Reuters confirmed through Pakistani sources that the United States and Iran are close to a one-page memorandum of understanding that has 14 points. The people negotiating on the American side are two people close to the president, Steve Witkoff, the president's special envoy, and Jared Kushner, who is the president's son-in-law, directly and through Pakistani mediators. The negotiation is in a two-step format. The first step is the one-page memorandum of understanding. This memorandum declares the end of the conflict and starts the 30-day window for detailed negotiations. The second step is detailed negotiations in Islamabad, there in Pakistan or in Geneva. The main points have already leaked. They gradually lifted the blockade by both sides in the Strait of Hormuz over the course of 30 days, gradual lifting of sanctions by the Americans, gradual release of billions of dollars of Iranian funds frozen by the Americans around the world, Iranian suspension of uranium enrichment. And there's also an important detail about this. The Iranians proposed a 5-year suspension. The Americans asked for 20 years. The negotiation is converging on between 12 and 15 years according to some sources. And after this period, Iran will only be able to enrich uranium up to 3.6 or 7 at most, which is a low level for civilian use in reactors. And also another clause states that any Iranian violation in enrichment extends the suspension period. Iran will have to accept unannounced inspections by United Nations inspectors. And the point that the White House considers central is the transfer of the stockpile of highly enriched uranium out of Iranian territory, possibly to the United States. And to conclude, a formal declaration of the end of the conflict. Ismail Bakai, spokesperson for the Iranian Ministry of Foreign Affairs, confirmed yesterday that Iran is reviewing all of this. He said the following, the American proposal is still under review. When we finalize our position, we will share it with Pakistan. End quote. But today, the American president gave information that changed the perspective on these negotiations. Speaking to journalists, the president said the following about the Iranian offer. Their offer basically said that they will not have atomic weapons. They will hand over the nuclear material to us and several other things that we want. End quote. They will hand over the nuclear dust. He is saying that Iran will hand over its entire stock of enriched uranium to the United States. And when journalists asked if Iran had already agreed to this, he was categorical. They agreed according to Trump. If it's true, the Iranian regime has already given in on the most important point, handing over the enriched uranium to the Americans. But there are, important nuances. The Iranian press still says that Iran is reviewing it and that there hasn't been an official response. It could be that he's anticipating the response, or there might be a verbal agreement that hasn't been formalized yet. And it could be that the regime is divided on how to announce the acceptance. And Marco Rubio, Secretary of State, was very clear about one thing. You remember that Ghalibaf, the president of the Iranian parliament, threatened yesterday that the Americans have to respect Iran's new maritime agreement. That means in the Strait of Hormuz. And Marco Rubio rejected it directly. He said this: under no circumstances can we live in a world where we accept this as normal. That we have to coordinate with Iran, that we have to pay them a toll to be able to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. Rubio called a toll what the Iranian regime is calling a new maritime agreement. That's the United States completely rejecting the Iranian attempt to turn the Strait of Hormuz into a zone controlled by the regime. That would be a non-negotiable point for the Americans, at least according to Marco Rubio. Total freedom of navigation, and even more. The Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, said today that he met for more than 2.5 hours with the supreme leader, Mustafa Khamenei. This is the first confirmed public meeting between the two since Mustafa took office in March. Pezeshkian described Mustafa. He said it like this, in a humble and deeply intimate manner. But Pezeshkian did not give any clues about Mustafa's physical condition, and that's where it gets interesting. Mustafa hasn't appeared in public since taking office. Only written statements, and Pezeshkian was received for a private meeting that lasted 2.5 hours. That could mean two things. It could be that Mustafa is building internal support to accept the American agreement, and it could be that Mustafa is building internal support to reject the agreement and return to total war. And honestly, we don't know that. We'll probably find out in the next few days. But there's another statement from Iran today that's also concerning. Ghalibaf, the president of the Iranian parliament, and just to remind you, he is the regime's official chief negotiator in the talks in Pakistan, gave an interview to the Iranian state media today. And he warned the Iranians by saying the following, quote, Iranians need to prepare for a difficult road ahead, end quote. A difficult road ahead? Ghalibaf is the man who negotiates directly with the Americans through Pakistani mediation. When he warns the Iranian people about a difficult road ahead, it's because internally he knows that two things might be happening right now. Either the deal is about to be closed on the conditions that the regime considers painful, or even a surrender, or the deal won't go through and the conflict will return in full force. In either scenario, it's a yellow alert. And another Iranian deputy, Bernard Said, secretary of the National Security Commission of the Parliament, was even more radical. He said the following: not a single kilogram of enriched uranium will leave Iranian territory. The American claim is a political lie, end quote. Not a single kilogram. Said is rejecting exactly the central point of the American counterproposal, the transfer of the stock of highly enriched uranium out of Iran. If the Iranian regime really refuses this point, there is no deal. And this is where the Americans come in with the ultimatum: either remove the uranium or the bombing resumes. And right after the shootout that happened in the Strait of Hormuz, the Iranians attacked the United Arab Emirates. Again, I repeat, again. And this morning, reports of more attacks. Early this morning at 6 and 6:30 a.m. Israel time, the air defense there in the Emirates intercepted. The Emirates confirmed in an official statement, the population of the Emirates was advised not to approach any fragments that may have fallen to the ground after the interceptions. And pay attention, the situation is getting serious. The Iranian regime is not stopping. Even after the American operation against Bandar Abbas and Kersh, even after the statement promising a big flash if the ceasefire falls, even after the statement saying Iran had agreed. The regime keeps firing at the Emirates. It's probably the most radical part of the regime showing strength, trying to rally its base, proving it still has offensive capability. But there's also another possible interpretation, and it could be that the regime is divided, that what the American president says Iran has accepted is not being accepted by all Iranian generals. Let's wait for more information throughout the day. And to wrap up, 3 signs you need to watch for in the coming hours. Sign 1. The French fleet arrived today in the Red Sea. Macron is pressuring both sides to accept the French-British proposal for a multinational force in the Strait. Sign 2. 1,550 oil tankers are stuck near the Strait of Hormuz, unable to pass. The world economy is being affected, and the Americans won't accept this for long. Sign 3. The meeting between Pazecchiano and Mustafa lasted 2.5 hours. It's still unclear whether this is a sign of an agreement or an escalation, but it's the first confirmed face-to-face meeting between the two since March. The final takeaway for you from this live: true victory only comes with the fall of the regime. If an agreement is reached now, the regime survives. But history shows that Iran will break the agreement at some point, just like it broke the 2015 agreement. If an offensive happens, the regime could indeed fall all at once, and the region could finally breathe. As for me and Guido, time will tell, and I'll keep following every move, every new Iranian statement, every American confirmation, every post from Trump straight from Israel, right from where everything is happening. Share this video with your family, work, and friends groups. I'll see you later live from Israel. Take care and see you next time.